Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Gaelic Games Fan TV. How are we all getting on? How is the form? It is match day 2 of the Allianz National Football League, and of course, we are here to predict and preview match day 2 of the league. It is just myself today. Unfortunately, we couldn't get a guest on, so it will just have to be myself. You'll have to put up with for today's preview. But nonetheless, we are going to run through all 16 matches across all 4 divisions, looking at them in as much detail as you can, obviously, because there's 16 games to run through. There's a lot to preview. We're going to be taking your comments as well, so make sure to get your comments in live. Let me know your predictions, your plans for some of the games this weekend. What do you think will happen? And yeah, anyone who's new to the channel, we do plenty of matches and match reactions, and everything else. And yeah, hopefully should do the first watch along of the season this weekend as well. Donegal, Dublin proposes to be a very, very interesting game. And since I won't be going to it, I suppose a watch along maybe wouldn't be a bad thing on an L Saturday night. But look, we'll see what happens. We'll definitely try and do one over the weekend. So yeah, look, as you very well know, or some people might know, we are doing an L predictions league this year. And how this works is we're going to have 7 different guests on. Obviously, we couldn't quite get one today. But anyway, we're going to get 7 different guests on. They're all going to be predicting each of the weekend's games. And for each prediction they get right, they get a point. For each margin of victory they get correct, they get 3 points. And if they correctly predict the player of the week, they get 5 points. Poor Matthew there predicted David Clifford to win Player of the Week last week, and he didn't play because Kerry didn't play. So in a bit of a pickle with that one. But yeah, to be fair to Matthew, he picked up 8 points, which actually wasn't bad when you think about it. 8 points out of 13. Eight predictions correct out of 13. So actually not bad in fairness, and he could still potentially move up on that ranking as well because there's still 3 more games, to play because of the postponements and everything else. But as we didn't have a guest on, or as we don't have a guest on for this weekend's games, what we are going to do, we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to put it back to some of you lads. So if anyone wants to leave a comment after this stream of your predictions for this weekend's games, if you pick a margin of victory as well. And actually, another important point, I forgot to mention, is that so the person who finishes top of this league here will get to pick a forfeit for me to do. Now, I already know the forfeit for Matthew. We said it on last week's show. So if Matthew does stay in number 1 there, when Dublin are playing in a big championship game, I have to get a big speakerphone, on Jones's Road, basically shout that Cork is the real capital in a Cork jersey. So I really hope I don't have to do that, but we'll see obviously what the other forfeits will be. So for anyone, feel free, let me know your predictions in the comments down below. Predict every game, margin of victory, and player of the week, and let me know a forfeit as well. And the first person to put that comment after this stream, then you're going to be added in here. So there you go. But yeah, look, we'll crack into the games because there is plenty of games to run through, and there is a lot to discuss in fairness. So let's start with the Division 1 games, and Donegal versus Dublin is the first one up here that we're going to discuss. It is a huge game, or feels like a huge game, if it probably isn't because it's the league and early stages of the league. It is a little bit unusual because we haven't seen Donegal, so you would think, we saw what Dublin did against Mayo. We saw how well they played, but we don't know where Donegal are at, really. And it is unfortunate in some ways we didn't get to see that Kerry game because it does make this preview a little bit harder because we kind of have nothing really to go off when we're speaking about Donegal. The only thing I would go off with Donegal, though, is that we know that last year in the league, they started the league very, very strong. I don't think it's in Jim McGuinness's remit to not take the league seriously. I think they will come out all guns blazing. You've got Michael Murphy back. A lot of people saying Michael Murphy will be the man in goal for Donegal, which would be a little bit crazy and would be a little bit bizarre. But especially when you look at how the game is evolving and how the game was played at the weekend, Michael Murphy, I actually think, as bizarre as it would sound, I think he'd be the perfect man to be in goal for Donegal because, there's no better man. Like, especially when you're looking at that sweeper keeper and the role that they now play in the game, it is very reminiscent to the type of role that Michael Murphy used to play with Donegal, where he would drift back in and around midfield. He would be keeping the ball. He would be slowing it down. He'd be picking out passes in front of him. And of course, he's got a wand of a shot as well. He can score those 2-pointers. So the reason why I always thought it was maybe false to begin with was because Sean Patton's a very, very good goalkeeper. And I think to take him out, like for Michael Murphy, would be a little bit strange. But maybe Michael Murphy might be an option there, as Jim McGuinness has said, maybe as a substitute or something like that, if you're chasing a game. So it's going to be interesting with Donegal. It is going to be interesting to see what type of team they go out with. Will they go strong? Will they go with, your Oisin Gallons, your Patrick McBurthys of the world? Will we see Finbar Rorty play, who looked very good, in pre-season last year, and young player coming through the ranks and everything else. You've got Kieran Murr, who looked very good as well. So there's some interesting parts about Donegal. From a Dublin perspective, though, look, I was very impressed with us against Mayo. Kevin Lahiff was outstanding that day. Especially, you're always looking at the younger players coming in. And you had the likes of Kevin Lahiff, who, really made a big step up coming into the team, scoring 1-2. James Madden, obviously, coming back from AFL, looked impressive in different parts. And, of course, Sean Bugler, probably one of his most impressive performances I've seen, in a Dublin shirt. And I think when I was there in Croke Park, you probably didn't appreciate it enough. And it was probably more so when you've seen the highlights on Sunday game and everything else that you were like, what a performance from this lad. It's going to be interesting to see if any other players come back in. Lee Gannon, I think, is still injured. Will Cormac Costello come back in? That's going to be interesting. Will you play Owen O'Donnell at full forward again? We have heard that Paul Mannion and Jack McCaffrey won't be coming back. So that is a blow. Cluxton is back, but do you play him in the league? Probably not. Although I do think it might be no harm in playing him in a few league games just to, test them out with these new rules. So do you go with Gavin Sheridan in there? I think David O'Hanlon has gone from what I know. So it'll be Evan Comerford or Gavin Sheridan. So it'll be interesting. Look, I think, it is a hard one to call really because we didn't see Donegal last week. But I think this might just be, especially with the players Dublin will still be missing. You won't have Con back, in my opinion. I don't think you'll have the Kula lads back for this game. I think all I heard, and someone commented recently, is they're all in Malaga. So fair play, enjoy that up. Well-deserved, I think, after what they achieved. So you don't bring them back into this game. You definitely don't. So I think Donegal at home, I would fancy them to win this. I think I would go with probably, it is hard to predict now, especially with the 2-pointers and everything else. But I could see this being maybe a 3-point win for Donegal. A 3-point win for Donegal is what I will go with. Gavin says, how's the form, Aaron? Of course, when Intercounty's back, I have no electricity, but could be back for the week too. Hopefully there's no storm Sunday. Hopefully not, mate. Yeah, all is good with me, my man. I hope all is good with you. And yeah, plenty of people around the country without electricity. I know John McMahon, who was we were trying to get onto the show, but he's no electricity either. So a lot of people are without electricity and everything else, which is mad. I think I heard that some people are without electricity until the 5th of February, which is quite crazy. Us Dubs, we wouldn't know. I don't think I've ever experienced not having electricity. It happened actually once before, I remember, because they were doing roadworks on a Sunday, and it actually wasn't that bad because I think there was like an FA Cup final or on or something, so I just went to the pub. But anyway, moving on. Gaelic Guy says, I think Michael Murphy is a great fit for a Roman goalkeeper. Donegal are great at home, but Dublin, despite being a younger team, they seemed good last week, maybe a draw. Gaelic Guy says, I'd slightly back Donegal by about 3-4. Yeah, I think I'll go with Donegal as well. It just seems like, again, if we had seen Donegal against Kerry, we could judge it a little bit more, but I do think Dublin will just about get beat. I think I'd fancy Donegal there. Mayo versus Galway up next. Again, you would probably look, when you're looking at last week's games, you would probably say Galway look sort of in a better position right now than Mayo, albeit Mayo probably still have a few players to come back in. In saying that, like there were some positives from Mayo against Dublin, I think. 6 of their starting forwards all scored. We know how good Ryan O'Donoghue is, but I think the part you would be impressed with from a Mayo perspective is that if it's felt like for the last couple of years, there's only really been one or two forwards who would kind of carry the torch for Mayo, and whether that would be a Ryan O'Donoghue or, a Tommy Conroy, and Aidan O'Shea, and, to a certain extent, Cillian O'Connor. But you did have other lads who stepped up there. Fergal Boland was very good, I thought, maybe in the league last year in the championship or something of that nature. He kicked 4 points, so he looked very, very good. Conor Reid got a goal as well. So there are some positives there from a Mayo perspective. Do you bring an Aidan O'Shea maybe back into this game? I think I heard that he missed the Dublin game because he was away on holidays or something of that nature. So yeah, he probably is entitled to a bit of a holiday at the start of the league, to be fair. So be interested to see if he comes back in. Yeah, look, but I think for Galway though, like especially with how well Galway played, like see that is the thing. I think when you're looking at some counties, the new rules definitely suits Galway down to the ground. It absolutely does, because they have so many players there who can take advantage of those new rules, whether it be Shane Walsh, whether it be Paul Conroy, Cillian O'Corrine as well. Bit of a tongue twister, that name, but he played very well as well. He scored 5 points. So I just think Galway probably, even though it's away and McHale Park and everything else, it is a little bit bizarre though, because when you actually look through a recent record, Mayo tend to do better when they play Galway away. And Galway tend to play better when they play Mayo at McHale Park, and it's the same when Roscommon are involved as well. So it is a little bit strange, but I think they drew the last time they played here in the league 2 years ago. I can't remember what the score was last season. Weird how I can remember the year before, but not last year. I don't know why that is. I think Galway might have won last year. I know they did win the Connacht final though. But yeah, I think Galway at this moment in time, with the players that they have, Walsh came off the bench the last day, so I think that's, he's probably going to play. The fact that Kilmacud Crokes got knocked out of Dublin early on and he didn't have that long sort of season, I think that means he can bring him in now a little bit earlier, and I think that's perfect, obviously, for Galway. You John Maher, who came off the bench the last day, Kieran Malloy maybe as well. So yeah, I think Galway, Galway are definitely probably outside shouts maybe to potentially go and even win this league. But look, Mayo, as we know, play, big rivals. They'll make this game tough at home as well, like especially with the fans there and everything else. It will be tough for Galway. But I'm going to fancy the Galwegians to nick it. I think they will. I'm going to go with them. A 2-point win, I think, is what I'll go for there. Gavin says, wonder where this will be played. Problems with McHale Park. I didn't think of that actually as well, to be fair. So yeah, it will be interesting to see if any games get called off as well. But there we go. You just never know with Mayo, and playing at home too may be important also. But I can only see a Galway win, says Keane. I worry for Mayo. I think Galway should win. Could be by a fair bit. Galway by 7, says Gaelic Eye there. So interesting stuff there. And Keane says Galway have their eyes on the bigger prize later in the summer. I think they do, to be fair. And it wouldn't surprise me if Galway, picked up 3 or 4 wins and then probably took their foot off the gas a little bit. I think that's probably nearly the best way to approach the league now, is get a couple of wins in. Then you can start resting, rotating. You're not going to get relegated. If you get to the league final, cool. Then it's an added bonus. But the focus then goes in on the championship. So yeah, I think Galway are that bit further ahead. I think the midfield battle between Paul Conroy and Matthew Rowan will be very interesting. I did think Matthew Rowan was a little bit quiet for Mayo the last day, and he definitely is a player who can kick those 2-pointers, in my opinion. But there we go. Will it be a happy homecoming for Armagh as All-Ireland champions? They face Tyrone. Speaking of big rivalry games, this is certainly one. Undoubtedly, the atmosphere is going to be buzzing in Armagh because, it's the first game they would have played at the Athletic Grounds, at least with fans anyway. They might have played a challenge match there, but certainly in terms of, league game, competitive game, first game they will have there since winning the All-Ireland. So there's bound to be, a huge atmosphere. But look, it is interesting because Armagh had some bright sparks against Galway. Like, they lost by 6, but again, with the 2-pointers, I think it does skew like your probably perception of the scoreline. And I think Cahir O'Kane, I've seen him tweeting about it a little bit during the week, maybe saying that, do they need to do something now with the scoreboard to kind of, we know when a goal is there, we know what a point was usually. But again, you don't want to confuse I think to have another digit in there or another bracket in there in the scoreboard would make things probably a little bit silly. But it's going to be interesting with Armagh. Do you know what would be mad? Imagine Rian O'Neill just came back in, and after all that chat, there he is in the team. Probably not going to happen though, to be fair. But I do think he will be back at some point though this year. I do think there was a little bit of mind games there from McGeaney. I do think you will see Rian O'Neill back in there. But yeah, like I suppose like the worry for Armagh was that only only 3 players scored actually on Saturday night. Rory Grugan scored 4. Oisín Connaughty, who has really, when you look back to last season, now this year, like he's been an incredible player, an incredible find really for Armagh, getting him in the team. Conor Turbot didn't start the last day. I think he came on at half time. He kicked the point. So maybe you bring him back in and start him, and he would certainly be a great attacking talent to have. But you are probably looking at more wanting more from the likes of Stephen Campbell, maybe Ben Creeley around the middle as well. But there are obviously a good few players to come back in there for Armagh, in fairness. So it will be interesting to see what players come back in. Charlie O'Byrnes came off the bench the last day as well. Will be interesting to see if they go with Ethan Rafferty, because with this sort of sweeper keeper role and everything else, he's probably a player that's suited more to that. But it is hard to look past Tyrone. Like Tyrone looked very good against Derry. 2-13 they finish with. And although they're missing a few players, obviously themselves as well, and the Canavans and everything else, Peter Hart maybe to come back in. But they have the players there who could do the damage. I mean, Darren McCurry looked brilliant the last day. You've got Matty Donnelly, you've got Ronan Cassidy, Shea O'Hare, obviously at wing back as well. Michael McKernan, who is probably one of the most unsung heroes, I think, in this Tyrone team. When you think about it, he was part of that team that won the All-Ireland a couple of years ago. He's, of all the Tyrone defenders, he's never one who gets mentioned about quite a lot. I think a lot of people look at your Pádraig Hampsey's, Ronan McNamee, obviously, when he was there, Peter Hart. But Michael McKernan has been such a consistent thorn in teams. And, it's not the first time he's ventured forward and got a goal. And maybe because he is playing a little bit further up the pitch now, we're seeing a bit more joys in that. It's a hard one to call this, because I think with the atmosphere in the Gaelic grounds, in the athletic grounds, Armagh are bound to be bang up for this, and they're bound to make this game tough for Tyrone. And I don't think it would be, I think the Armagh players will feed into that energy. So it's a very, very hard one to call. Very, very hard one to call, to be honest. Gaelic Eye says, I have a bad feeling about this game. I'm going to say an entertaining draw. Gavin says Tommy Rooney has Armagh as 1 in his power rankings, but they seem to drop off against Galway. But we will see what they're like against Tyrone. I think Tyrone maybe by 3. I'm going to go. I think I'm going to go with a 1-point win for Tyrone. I'm going to go with them to nick it. I think if this was in Tyrone, I'd be very confident Tyrone would win it. But I think it's just the fact that it's at the athletic grounds. I think it's a big rivalry game. I think the Armagh players will definitely be up for this. And I think Tyrone will be as well, because Tyrone, will be going there knowing that Armagh are the All-Ireland champions. A lot of them Tyrone players will know how that feels as well. From obviously, back in 2021. So it's going to be interesting. There'll probably be a lot of red cards in this game. I think the game in 2022, which was when Tyrone were All-Ireland champions, I think I remember it was like 5 or 6 red cards in that game. I think Tyrone got 4 players sent off. So, if you're a betting man, you'd probably throw a bit of quid on someone to get sent off in this game, because it probably is very, very likely. But yeah, I'm going to go with Tyrone by 1. Derry versus Kerry. I suppose Kerry are one of them teams we didn't get to see last week. The word on the street leading into that game anyway was that a lot of Kerry players are missing. The Cliffords, I think, weren't available for the Donegal game. Will they be available for this game? It's kind of hard to know. Again, you don't really hear much of a sound out of that kind of Kerry camp. And it is hard to know, like having the extra, well, not the extra game off, but like Derry, the teams who played last week, I think will be coming into this week in much better position because they'll have played a game. The sharpness will be there because of how bad the weather was as well. It's not like you could train or anything of that nature, that way. So it's a hard one to call. Derry, like, you look at that scoreline against Tyrone and you think they looked really, really, you would think they were absolutely horrendous or terrible, but they actually played very well for the opening sort of half. They kicked the opening 3 points, and they just looked a little bit flat in the second half. They kind of just drifted away. I suppose the worry, and I think Matthew was alluding to this on the show on Monday, is that you do look at the team and it was very close to their best team, like in terms of Brendan Rodgers, Conor Glass, Shane McGuigan, Kieran McFall, McAvoy in there as well. Maybe if Garrett McKinless or, maybe 1 or 2 more players to come back in, but it was very, very close to Derry's best team, and they still ended up getting beat by Tyrone by 7 points, and that was certainly not Tyrone's best team. So it's kind of a hard one to judge, to be honest with you. And maybe I might go for a draw. I think Gaelic Guy says I think these two will be down at the lower end of the league by the final game. I'm going to back Derry by 2. You know what? Maybe I might back Derry as well, just because I think Kerry might be missing a good few players. Derry should be a little bit sharper after the last game. The fact they went strong against Tyrone suggests that they're probably going to do something similar here. And yeah, you know what? I think I'd agree with you there. I think Derry by 2 points. So yeah, that's Division 1 in the books. So let's move on to Division 2, and Down versus Cork is an interesting one here. It's always a game that catches the eye because of 2010 and the history of this fixture and everything else. And it kind of is mad how much these two have fallen in recent years, albeit they probably both are maybe a little bit on the rise now. They've probably met each other in actually lower moments than this. Probably well lower moments. Both of these two have drifted down to Division 3 at different stages. Even a couple of times. So, look, Down, it was an interesting one. Down had a lot of positive signs against Roscommon. They scored 120. They started the game absolutely brilliantly. There was a common trend over the weekend of a lot of teams like building up leads and then losing the leads. And I think obviously the 2-pointers play a big part in that, to be fair. Pat Havern was outstanding, 11 points obviously from him. You would look at the other forwards though and think maybe they need like a little bit more. I suppose James Guinness scored 2, Danny McGill scored 2. You would wonder, can you see an Oisin Savage starter, a Caelan Mooney or something of that nature? It will be interesting to see Micheál Rooney maybe to come in at wing back. It's a massive game, and you feel like if Cork can win this, if Cork can go to Down and win away from home, there will be a feel-good factor around the Down fans in this one, because of obviously winning the Tailteann Cup. And although they lost to Roscommon, and you look at that scoreline and 7-point defeat, and they played the last 15 minutes, and 10 of those minutes they actually had an extra man. But I think there was a lot of positives from Down, and they showed to me that they could be a team here to really push for promotion. But if Cork can go there and win, then it would just, all of a sudden it would start to open up for Cork, because Cork have always been one of these teams that when they play the better teams, they can pull off a result, but consistency has always been the big problem. They've gone out and beat Meath now. The pressure's on them a little bit. Will they go back to the kind of Cork we've seen of the last couple of years, or will they go and actually put a bit of a run together? Because they definitely have the players to push for promotion. Like Chris Oak-Jones, I remember seeing him against Dublin a couple of years ago, and I thought this guy is a very, very good player. It probably doesn't get mentioned enough. He scored 1-4 the last day. Mark Cronin, I remember seeing him with the under-20s for Cork as well against Dublin, and he was sort of, everyone was talking about Kieran Archer, the next star for Dublin, and Mark Cronin, the next star for Cork. And we don't know what's happened to Kieran Archer, but we know Mark Cronin has certainly taken his time to come into this Cork team. But 7 points the last day, so very, very impressive. And they were missing, Brian Hurley as well. So maybe with him coming back in, that could be a huge plus. So it's a tough one. I actually am going to go for a draw here. I think a draw is where I will go with this one. Gaelic Guy says I think Down will have a great league. I'm going to back Down by 4. Gavin says Down were really giving nerves in the hide in the first half. Maybe might sneak it. I think both have to win this if they want to go up. Yeah, I think so, because I think if Down were to lose this, then that's 2 defeats, and you're kind of up against it then. Even if they did lose to Roscommon, so they probably do have to win it, or at least not lose it. Obviously, a lot depends on the likes of other how strong are some of the other teams going to be in this league. It's kind of hard to know just yet, but gonna go for a draw. Gonna play the draw card there. There are always plenty of draws in the league, so I think I'll go with a draw there. Mikey says Down Cork will be a game of the weekend. 2 teams who will attack at will. 2 teams with poor dodgy defence, down by 2. It is a good point. Like Cork scored 219 the last day, but conceded 21. Whereas Down scored 120 but conceded 321. So yeah, this could be an absolute humdinger, no doubt about that. Monaghan versus Westmeath up next. It looks very, you would say, very one-sided. You would imagine. I don't think we would have been saying that maybe last week, because there was a little bit of hesitancy around Monaghan right now, in the sense that you don't have Conor McManus, obviously. Is it the end of an era? It's sort of hard to know. But look, that was a big win versus Cavan. An 8-point win. Again, you'd look at the scoreline and think, all right, there must have been a lot of 2-pointers in there. But as myself and Matthew calculated, or well, more so Matthew, to be fair, he was mentioning that Monaghan scored 5 2-pointers, but Cavan scored 4. So, in a world like last year, that's a 7-point win. So it's still a big win for Monaghan. And as I've said previously, I don't think Monaghan will just completely fall away. I still think they have a lot of good players in there, in Conor McCarthy and Jack McCarron, and who didn't even start the last day. David Garland obviously scoring 1-5 as well. So there are good players there in Monaghan. And I know Gabriel Bannigan, he took a Monaghan club, I think, from junior to senior. There's a lot of good mentions about him from Monaghan fans. And I do think they will get promoted, and I think they will win this game as well. Like, Westmeath lost to Louth by 2. It was a hard one to judge, because we didn't get any highlights on it in the Alliance League Sunday. So were Westmeath better than we thought, or were Louth just a little bit off it? Because a lot of people expected Louth to probably win that a little bit more comfortably. Like, Westmeath won't have Kevin McGuire, they won't have Ronan O'Toole, no John Heslin. They're missing a lot of big players. But they were literally a kick of a ball. Like, there was a late goal in that game against Louth from Sean Reynolds to win it for Louth. Like, right in injury time. So yeah, it's very, very hard to know where Westmeath are coming into it. But I think Monaghan at home, I'm gonna go with a 6-point win here. I think they will have enough to come through it. Alan says Dubs by 2 in relation to the Dublin game there. Gaelic Guy says Monaghan should win convincingly. Monaghan by 9. Daniel says Mayo will do the Mayo thing and beat Galway. Mayo man here. They could do, yeah. Like, I wouldn't be surprised. Mayo are that type of team who could just, turn up for these type of games. And I certainly don't think Mayo are a bad team by any stretch of the imagination. I just think Galway, especially with the players that they have, just look probably a little bit better. But yeah, we'll go with Monaghan by 6. Cavan versus Meath is the one that is up next. I think I actually might have got that the wrong way around there. Have I? Might be Meath at home. Yeah, it is Meath at home. So it is Meath at home there. So apologies there. But look, it's a massive game in terms of possibly relegation. Like, I think whoever loses this, I'm just going to update this thing here. I think whoever loses this could possibly get relegated, to be honest with you. There is worrying signs for Cavan. I'm more worried about them than I am about Meath. Like, Meath scored 21 points versus Cork. They actually had 40 shots in total, so their shooting accuracy was poor, but they were creating a lot of chances. And I think to create that amount of chances in the opening match of a league, I do think can give Meath fans a little bit of confidence. because last year the big problem was, when you looked at Meath score lines, they were hitting 10 points, 11 points, 13 points. They very rarely ever broke like 17 or 18 points. And I know you have the 2-pointers in now, when Meath scored a couple of them the last day. But I think they can be a little bit more positive. Whereas Cavan, they're missing players, Cavan. They definitely are missing players. Like, there's no Paddy Lynch, and that's a massive problem. Sean McAvoy, who's come into the Cavan team, he kicked 5 the last day. I remember seeing him I remember seeing him on RTE a couple of years ago in a club game, and he looked very, very good. And then I think he went to play soccer. So having him in the side is definitely a big boost. But they just, like, even when you look at the team here, you look at their forwards and they don't have a lot of players there, maybe other than a Sean McAvoy, who really kind of jump out at you. And I know they've Gerard McKernan back in. Maybe he starts in this game. Darren McVeety, who's been playing a little bit further back, scored 4 the last day. Very hard to... I back Meath here. I think Meath at home. Jordan Morris kicked a couple of beautiful scores the last day as well. Owen Frain's looking very good as well. So I think Meath will get the better, and I actually think it's going to be a 4-point win there for Meath. I said in my Football League predictions at the start of the year, so a couple of weeks ago, that Meath would get relegated. I had Cavan in 6th. If I could flip them around now, I think I would, to be honest with you, because I do think I think Cavan are probably going to be in a bit of trouble, unfortunately. Mikey says, I had Cavan to pip Monaghan to promotion. They've shut me up quick, barring something mad. They should handle Westmeath. They should do. Very disappointed with Cavan last week. Lynch, Smith, Cavan need more players to score. If they have the shooting boots, this could maybe be a draw. I think the loser will go down with Westmeath, and I'm actually going to back Meath by 3. And Aidan says Cavan by 1. Look, as a Dublin fan, I'd obviously like to see Cavan win it. There's absolutely no doubt about that. I suppose they say the rivalry's dead, but maybe it's still there. I don't know. But look, I'm going to go with Meath to win it by 4, in my opinion. You've Louth versus Roscommon up next. Another interesting game here. Roscommon looking very, very good the last day. I think pound for pound, they were probably the most impressive team of the league last week. Albeit, look, I know the quality of opposition, a good team, don't get me wrong, but it's not, it's not a Division 1 team, is it? Obviously. But they still look very, very good. I think they were one of the teams who used the new rules very, very well. And certainly Roscommon fans can be positive with how that game finished up. It was mad though, because as Gavin alluded to a little bit earlier, down we're making Roscommon fans maybe a little bit nervous. There were 5 points down at one stage, maybe even 6 points down before they turned it around. But they just have a wealth of attacking options. I mean, you obviously have German Murtha, and we know how good he is. But you've got Kieran Murtha coming back in now. He scored a beautiful goal with the outside of his boot. And the Smith scored 1-1 the last day. We know how good he is. You've got Keane McKeown back in. You've got Ben O'Carroll back from injury as well. It's definitely in terms of attacking options. And I'd be curious even for Gavin, who's watching, or other Roscommon fans. It does feel like this is maybe like the best sort of attacking options Roscommon have had in quite a long, long time. And if they can keep them all fit, I'm not saying they're going to go and win an All-Ireland or anything of that nature, or even seriously challenge for one, but they can definitely ruffle a few feathers. And look, they beat Tyrone last year in the championship. They have good players there. And I probably would expect them to win this game. Louth, again, it's one of them. It's kind of hard to know against Westmeath. They scored 117. It was, I suppose, maybe a bit of a derby. They struggled a little bit at times in the game from what I've heard. I think they will make life difficult for the Rossies, and it won't be a walk on the park, especially for Louth, playing at home in that ground as well. I've actually never been to their stadium before, or their pitch before, but I've heard it's an absolute nightmare of a place to play. And I mean that politely, in the sense that's a very, very hard place to go. A lot of teams do struggle there. We saw Cork go there numerous times and lose. It is a very tough place to go to, and Louth are very, very good at making use of that home advantage. So yeah, look, you have Sam Mulroy, you've got Craig Lennon, Andy McDonald scored 2 points the last day as well. But I think Roscommon will be too much here, and I'd probably go Roscommon by 5 points. Nerb says here, Loud could win this on their return to Drogheda Park. Yeah, they could do. In fairness, Bandit says Moon is in a bad place. Expect cards and chaos, especially in Armagh. There we go. You heard it here first. Something got to do with the Moon as well. Again, we don't know what Loud were good or bad last week. I think it could be the same as last week where we get away with it. Roscommon by 1. I think these two will be promoted by the end, but the Rossies get over the line narrowly. Aidan says Roscommon are actually down by 7 just at the start of the half. Yeah, there you go. Great depth developed last week, but we might need more of the Pearce's players as well. Look, I think I'll go with Roscommon. Roscommon by 4, but I think it'll be one of the. I think it'll be similar again. I think Louth will have their moments, and maybe sort of in the last like 5 or 10 minutes, Roscommon might just pull away. Like especially when you have those players that you can bring off the bench as well. When you're able to bring Kieran Murtagh, Ben O'Carroll, and Donny Smith off the bench, like that's you've Connor Cox. Just looking on the Score BO app here, who didn't even, was on the bench, but he was an unused substitute. So, Roscommon definitely in a healthy-ish position there. Moving on to Division 3 then. We got Laois versus Offaly. I'm definitely regretting my prediction about Laois getting promoted. I think that might be one that you guys look back at and laugh. I look back at and think, what on earth was happening there? But when I made that prediction, it was without knowing that they would lose so many players, and they've lost the likes of Evan O'Carroll. They've lost a good crop of players. And Offaly, on the other hand side, a team I thought would, be okay and stay up in Division 3, but they have struggled, but they have started very, very well. Struggled obviously last year, but that was a big win for Offaly against Sligo, against the team that a lot of people expect to, be pushing for promotion. To beat them by 7, they were trailing, I think, at half time as well, and sort of pulled away towards the end of the game. It was a massive win for Offaly, definitely a massive win. Mickey Hart is, barely there 5 minutes, and he's definitely sort of, laid his stamp into this team already. But the thing is with Offaly is that they did always have good forwards or good attackers. I don't think anyone was really doubting that. We saw the under-20 success from a couple of years back. But it was just with how poor and how bad they looked last year. Like you feel like when they lost to London, they were hammered by London, they were hammered by Limerick. You think there's more in that than just having an off day. But fair play, there was a massive win. Keith O'Neill 6 points, Dylan Hyland with 4. And Offaly, I would probably, I wouldn't have predicted this a couple of weeks ago, but I probably would have to back Offaly to win this. It's a derby as well, Midlands derby. So obviously a lot on the line there. But I would have to go with Offaly. I think I'm going to go with Offaly to win it by 3. 3-point win there for the faithful county. Gaelic Guy says Laois by 3. So there we go. Gavin says big derby here. I think the Biffos might win. I had them 3rd, but that Sligo win could be big later on. But there we go. Banda says question, was there any black cards in any of the games in this first week new rules? I think there was a few. There was definitely a black card in the Roscommon down game. And I think there was a few in the Westmeath Louth game from what I heard, or at least a red card in that game. But yeah, look, it will be interesting to see, if we get more. We do have Clare versus Leitrim as well. And there was a comment here from Keane who says it's Leitrim's first game this weekend against the Banner County following the postponement of our game v Laois, hoping that Leitrim can do the business on the road up Leitrim. It's a hard one to know here. Like if Leitrim were home, I would nearly predict Leitrim to pull a little bit of something, a bit of a sneaky win here. Clare scored 1-6 against Antrim, which was the lowest of any team. at the weekend. Or I think maybe London scored less, actually, maybe, now that I think about it. But Clare to end up at 1-6. To be fair, I've seen some of the clips doing the rounds of that game. I've seen him, Kevin Kennedy at the GA Sports Tracker app. He was at the game and he shared a few clips, and the weather looked absolutely horrendous. I mean, the ball literally looked like it was blowing back. So it looked like a bit of a bizarre game there. They do have a good few players back, like Owen Cleary's back, Keelan Sexton's in there. Emmett McMahon started with 2 points. Clare, that was a big defeat, I think, to lose to Antrim away. It definitely was a setback. And I think given that they lost that game, you would expect Leitrim and Antrim to be, certainly not up there fighting for promotion anyway, whereas I thought Clare would have been a little bit kind of further up there. So if they lose this game, it's a massive setback for Clare, for the new management, and it would be a huge setback there, in my opinion, for Clare. But I think at home I would go for them to win it. Leitrim didn't play last week, so again, there's probably an element of lacking that bit of match sharpness. And some of the teams who didn't play last week, it definitely is sort of a negative for them, especially if you're traveling as well and not getting that home game. So probably would go with Clare, I think, by 5 or 6. But look, it's going to be interesting with Stephen Poacher, because, as I said, probably in my predictions video a couple of weeks ago, Stephen Poacher has been known to be more of a defensive coach from his time managing in the Down Club Championship. So, especially with these new rules, are they going to adopt something similar? Or are they going to be a little bit more brave? It's going to be interesting to see kind of how they approach it. Keane says Leitrim to get over the line and win by 2. Yeah, I'd love to see it, to be fair. Gavin says, remember Clare drawing Roscommon and later beating them in 2022, and now they're playing Leitrim. Mad stuff. It's been quite the fall for Clare. Gaelic Guy says, actually back Leitrim. Going to say they win by 3. I think Clare will go down. Daniel says, hard to know how the teams that haven't played last will shape up this weekend too. Bandit says, if Leitrim bring hurls and Clare play football, score will be 5-17 to 8-47. You're in some form today, I'll give you that. Look, I think I would have to go with Clare. I think, in fairness, to get over the line and win. I think at home, I think they will be too strong. So we'll go with a 6-point win there. Sligo versus Kildare. Again, I suppose it is interesting with one game, 1 week of football, how much that can change your opinion. But, if this game was a week ago, I think a lot of people here will be reckoning that Sligo win. But after Sligo losing to Offaly and Kildare beating Fermanagh by, 15 points, it's very, very hard to bet past Kildare at this moment in time. Now, at the same time, Sligo are at home, and I don't think one result should completely sway the opinion of what we saw last season as an example. And I think there has to be a response from Sligo because, especially with the league being just 7 matches, you go on a bit of a bad run of form, you can get relegated. There's so few games that it can be hard to kind of turn around a bad run. And we've saw plenty of teams in the past, and even Kildare last year to a certain extent, you go on a bad run and all of a sudden, you can't really turn that around. And I think for Sligo, whatever about if they miss out on promotion, fair enough. But, I think the last thing for Sligo football they would need is to end up in a bit of a relegation scrap. And I don't think they will. But I think it would be a bit of a, setback if that happened. But looking at Kildare the last day, it was a top performance from Kildare. 224 they scored in total. I mean, there's so many attacking players. They scored the joint most at the weekend. Wexford scored the same amount. They scored 224 as well. But it was a dominant performance. I mean, you've Noel Kelly, 3 points. Derek Kirwan, 1-6. Ryan Sinke, who was part of that under-20 team from a couple of years ago. Callum Bolton as well. I think Brian Flanagan, look, I think, I think for a good couple of years there, Kildare were in the doldrums and, they were a Division 1 team just a couple of years ago. So it's been a sharp fall, but, you'll see them back in Division 2 next season, in my opinion. I've absolutely no doubts about it. But I do have a feeling this will be a closer game than people think. I think Sligo will push Kildare all the way. It still will be interesting to see Kildare's backbone. Like if Kildare go a couple of points down in this game, will some of that sort of negative mindset and disbelief that was there at times last year, and a bit of, almost PTSD in some ways for Kildare, where they were, so often in bad scenarios last year and couldn't dig themselves out of it. If they found themselves in that scenario again, it would be interesting to see if they're able to get out of it. But I'll go with Kildare by 2. I think they'll have enough to come through it. But there we go. Gaelic Guy says Kildare by 3. Disappointing start for Sligo. Gavin says Kildare, giving me Birmingham City vibes. Might run away with the third tier. Yeah, I like that. I like that comparison. In fairness, and yeah, I think they'll, it's weird. I think if Kildare of last year were in Division 3, they'd probably struggle. But and if this Kildare was in Division 2 last year, they probably would have been fine. So, but yeah, I think they will. I think they will get over the line in my opinion. Fermanagh versus Antrim. As someone alluded to in the comments last week, Antrim have a very good record recently against Fermanagh, and Fermanagh, again, I've seen a little bit of the highlights of the Kildare Fermanagh game. It was doing the rounds on Twitter. It was disappointing for Fermanagh to score 112, quite a low amount, concede 224, in a game where they won last season, albeit they won it in their own ground. It's just not really the start you'd want for Fermanagh, is it? They had a good season in Division 2 last year despite getting relegated. They finished with 5 points. You do have good players there. Garvin Jones is decent. Darren McGurn scored 3 from midfield. So there are good footballers in there. You probably just need maybe like an Ulton Kell maybe to come back in. He came off the bench the last day. So yeah, it's kind of hard to know with Fermanagh. At home, you would think in Brewster Park, always a tough place to go to. You would think they would have enough. Kind of a bizarre scenario because Antrim scored 1-9 last week, and that was one of the lowest tallies, across the entirety of the league. But it was enough to win the game. So it was a little bit of a strange scenario there. But I am going to go for Fermanagh to get back on track. I think at home, they've had a couple of bad results against Antrim, but I think they'll want to right the wrongs of that. And I think Fermanagh will do enough to get the win. So I'll go with Fermanagh by 3. Keane says Markovich Park is a tough place to go to and play in. Sligo at home are a different side altogether. Sligo to beat Kildare by a point. It could happen. Look, 2 years ago as well, Sligo and Kildare played each other in the group stages actually of the championship of the All Ireland, and that was a draw. And at the time people thought that was a bizarre result, but kind of is mad now how they're both in the same division. Gaelic Guy says repeated a Tailteann Cup last year. Antrim by 2. There we go. So that's Division 4 or Division 3 in the books. We'll move on to Division 4 then, and we'll start off with Tipperary versus Longford. Longford got a draw the last time out. So did Tipperary, coincidentally enough, against Carlow. Only one team won last week from Division 4 because Waterford and Wicklow was postponed. For Longford, I suppose, look, they battled back in the game to get a draw, which was huge because you don't know how important a draw even could be in this division, especially with score difference or head-to-head rules and all that kind of stuff. So, and I would expect both Longford and Limerick to be up at to be challenging to get out of this division. Look, Matthew Kerry, 6 points from him. Oran Kenny with 2-1 as well. So Longford do have a few good players there. Tipperary, on the other hand side, have lost a good chunk of their footballers, but they still have Sean O'Connor, Stephen O'Brien as well, to be fair. So I think I'm going to go with Longford to edge it. I'm going to go with Longford to edge it by 2, in my opinion. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. You've got Waterford versus Carlow. I've been hearing positive signs about Waterford. A lot of people, I've been looking at comments on TikTok, and although you can never take comments there too seriously, but even Matthew as well, saying that Waterford do have a good few players, knocking about Sigerson Cup level that are looking quite good. Shane Curran's Carlow. Got a draw the last day, a couple of late points conceded. They probably had that game in their ascendancy. They missed a penalty in the 60th minute as well. So there probably was some disappointments there. So it's one of them. Do I believe what other people are saying about Waterford, or do I go with what I actually think will happen? I think I've answered my question there. I think Carlow should do it. I think Waterford pulled off a couple of surprises last year, and it'd be great to see them go on a run. It'd be great to see them. Gaelic football needs more teams to step up, and it was great when you saw Carlow go up to Division 3, many years ago, get to a Leinster semi-final. Be great to see them days back again. It'd be great to see Waterford go on a run in Munster. No, I think Carlow here should do it and win by 2. London versus Wicklow. I'm going to go with Wicklow very comfortably here. I think this will be a 7-point win, maybe an 8-point win here for Wicklow. It was obviously a very very heavy defeat for London the last time out versus Wexford. Obviously, given conditions and everything else, it was nearly a surprise that they got to Ireland in the first place, given how bad the storm was. So fair play to them for actually fulfilling that game and actually getting over here. And it's probably not that big of a surprise that it was such a heavy result. Look, at home in Ruislip, it's always, they can't often pull off shocks in the league. Wicklow didn't play last week, traveling over to London. Traveling over to London, it's probably a shorter flight to London than it probably is to get to some places in Ireland. But generally speaking, for Wicklow, I think they should be comfortable enough. They should be one of the stronger teams in this division. You've got Owen Darcy there, you've got Kevin Quinn, you've got a lot of very good footballers who I think can do damage. And I think Wicklow will be far superior there in my opinion. Wexford versus Limerick, big game. It has the makings of two teams pushing for promotion. Wexford, very, very strong. The last time out, scoring 224, I think it was, scoring the same amount as Kildare. So the joint top scorers. So many attacking players. John Hegarty's really got these cooking, I would say. Last season they looked absolutely brilliant. They won 5 out of 7 games, but because of head-to-head, they missed out. So I think at home, I would probably look at Wexford to win it. I think the big thing for Wexford, though, is consistency. Because so often, the problem has been building consistency and building wins, putting wins on the board. Can they put a run of results together? That's often been the problem. Last year was the first time in a while where it looked like they kind of were, because they won 5 out of 7. Sean Nolan the last day scoring 9, Shane Pettit scoring 4 points as well, Niall Hughes with 5 from midfield as well. So there's a lot of good players in Wexford. In fairness to Limerick, though, it's been obviously an incredible slide for them over the last couple of seasons. They definitely have players there who can do damage as well. They'll be obviously disappointed that they couldn't see the game out the last time out versus Longford, obviously conceding a couple of late points there from Matthew Kerry, as we were saying previously. And the last time they didn't have some of their big players, Ian Corbett, a few of them not playing. I think Wexford for me. I think at home, they should be able to do the business, in my opinion. Or is it Wexford at home here? Actually, let me just have a look. Maybe if I messed this one up here, I think I might have. Waterford versus Carlow. I think it might be the other way around. I think it might be Limerick at home. But you know what? We'll stick with the original prediction. We'll go with Wexford to do the business because why not? Look, they've been in great form. They've been going strong. Limerick are still missing a couple of players. No Ian Corbett, no Danny Neville. So yeah, I think I'd go with good old Wexford there to do the business. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Gaelic Guy says home advantage for Tip won't be enough. Longford by 2. Gaelic Guy also says Waterford will earn a surprise by a point. Wicklow by 10. and Wexford by 4. Limerick will struggle again this year. Bandit says, yes, I'm in great form. Just back on after a week. I'm not too sure, man. I don't know. Enjoy the good form. That's all I'll say. Live large. Donegal failed to travel to Kerry is a joke. Yeah, look, I mean, to be fair, there were some question marks over that, in fairness. Some people saying, was that Jim McGuinness getting up to his old tricks, considering the hurlers and, the ladies' football and everything else. They were all able to travel, that way. But I don't know. Look, it's they have to travel to Kerry at some point. So, I don't know. I think, to be honest, it was just a very large distance. I don't know. Wexford by 4. Limerick will struggle again this year. And Gavin says, I think Wexford might be their best chance to go up. They have to take. Absolutely, they do. Because there will be some good teams coming down as well from Division 3. Like when you look at some of the sides who are in Division 3, there will be some good teams coming down there. So they do need to take advantage whilst they can, in my opinion. But yeah, that'll wrap that up there in terms of player of the week or bet of the week. I think looking at it there, player of the week, Michael Murphy may be coming back for Donegal. I don't think he'll start. Do you know what? I'll go for Conor Glass. I think he scored a cracking goal the last day versus Tyrone, and I think he could have a big performance for Derry should they get over the line versus Kerry. And in terms of bet of the week, it's kind of hard to really know. Could you see Leitrim cause a shock there versus Clare? Sligo could be Kildare, to be fair. Maybe Waterford get something versus Carlow. But maybe Derry versus Kerry, I suppose, is an outside shout there. But do let me know what you think. But yeah, Gavin says, I think it's because the other Donegal teams were playing on Saturday. The men's seniors were also playing Sunday. So there you go. Yeah, maybe that could be why. But yeah, let me know anyway your predictions in the comments down below. That's been all the games predicted and discussed. As I was saying before, for anyone, let me know your comments down below. And if you want to pick an L forfeit for me to do as well, if your predictions top the L leaderboard, I will do it. So you can be as creative, as crazy as you want. As I said before, Matthew wants me to wear a Cork jersey. Which, look, there's probably worse jerseys for me to wear. So if that happens, then fair enough. But yeah, do let me know your predictions in the comments down below. We'll finish with Gaelic Guy here who says player of the week, Paul Conroy. Outside bet of the weekend, Leitrim win. There we go. Yeah, to be fair, Paul Conroy could be a good shout. I think I went with him last week. And probably wasn't a million miles off. So especially with these 2 pointers, you are looking at those players who can take advantage. And again, it is actually a great shout, in fairness. But yeah, cheers anyone who tuned in. Hit the like button, subscribe. We'll be back, I'm sure, over the weekend for more videos, reactions, and everything else. So stay tuned for that. And until then, we'll speak to you all soon.